This program is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. The information provided in this podcast reflects the opinions and experiences of the hosts and is not medical or mental health advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding any questions about your health or well-being. If you are experiencing a medical or mental health emergency, contact your local emergency services.
But where our science comes in is we're actually looking at how behavior influences. Then what that is indicative of is having more female influence in early childhood, right? So when I actually see someone who shows up in their spine, I'm like, wow, this is great. Like when I see a woman who's in her feminine and she's able to be vulnerable and she's able to express her overwhelm and she's able to ask for help.
Welcome to the Adjusting Your Life podcast. I'm Kennedi and I'm here with Dr. Steve. This is episode 105, The Spine Remembers, the Science Behind Healing.
This episode of the Adjusting Your Life podcast is brought to you by Ward Chiropractic. Dr. Steve finds what most doctors miss. And his wall adjustment technique, it can bring fast relief. Check out chiroman.com for hours, location, and to contact the clinic. That's chiroman, chiroman.com.
So Dr. Steve, we're going to talk about generational stress in the spine and what's beyond the DNA.
Well, we all know about DNA and its effect on families for generations. And we may be impacted by our color of hair or eyes, eye color. There's so many things that we look at relative to DNA. But where our science comes in is we're actually looking at how behavior influences right genealogy and impact generations. And that impact really starts so far back in a family history. Mm-hmm. As far back as the family history can go, right, we will see behavioral programs. And those behavioral programs then move forward from that point forward. And most people adopt a set of behavioral programs that did not originate with them, mm-hmm, that they actually came in before them. And so what this work or science behind the work that I do has helped me to understand is that people show up with patterns. And when I first started, I saw it as, oh, this is a spinal pattern. Mm-hmm. It was interesting because years back, my dad had a professional artist draw out all the different spinal curvature patterns. Mm-hmm. And on those illustrations, he put on the top behavioral pattern. Mm-hmm. And I always struggled, why is that there? And then, but as I go through life and I realize that everything is about behavior. Mm-hmm. So if someone's in pain, it's about behavior. If someone's not in pain, it's about behavior. So it's really interesting to me how my awareness has evolved so much over the years.
Why don't we talk about my generational stress, since you have x-rays on myself and also other siblings? Is there a pattern that you see amongst us all that would represent what we're talking about today?
Sure. We have been blessed because you made a choice to get a set of x-rays on yourself. And then from that, you encouraged your siblings to get x-rays. And we've been fortunate to be able to get 3 out of your 4 sisters x-rayed, mm-hmm, and 2 out of your 3 brothers x-rayed. Right. So we're taking a look at a family dynamic. And it's interesting in your family because the sibling starts out with 4 daughters. What is a commonality is backward curvature within, I'm sure, all four examples are representing in backward curvature, even though we don't have x-rays on the third daughter.
Yeah.
So that backward curvature is referencing the father who's more passive, the father who goes to work, and the father that really looks at being provider as opposed to being present. So when we're looking at these backward curves, and it's interesting too, because your older sister is backward in curvature, both standing and seated, which is kind of interesting when we see a backward curvature in two positions of stress. It's not unusual to see it standing, but to also see it sitting. But then when we look at her middle back curve, there's more loss of a curve with your older sister, but she still has a backward curve, which is, how do I deal with things that are hard? A lot of times I just want to deny them. I want to act as if it's not even happening. And so we do see that backward curve on all of you. And that is an indication of a father's absence, and also an indication of, wanting love from a father, wanting the father to be present. And there's other factors along with it, because when we look at someone like your father, he would be a female dominant man.
Right.
So when you're a female dominant man, then what that is indicative of is having more female influence in early childhood.
Right, which you
right? And less male influence. And so that's kind of what your father's aspect was. So he comes into the world, and his fantasy is that he will get the validation, encouragement, approval, and love that he wants from his parents. And of course, like us all, that's what we all want. The unfortunate part of that is our parents never learned how to love, especially as we go back in time, right? Parents today, it's a little different. But when you go back and when your dad was raising you kids, he's just in a behavioral program, and he's just moving through his life, and he's provider. He also attracts dominant female. In doing that, he goes to work instead of stays at home, where he's likely to be verbally criticized. So it makes sense. We run towards pleasure.
Right. Away from
and we run away from pain.
Right.
So if we have pain in the situation, then our logic says, I'm not running away, I'm providing. I'm working, I'm providing. I'm paying the bills, I'm taking care of my family. But in truth, the role is so important of a father to be present. For daughters, they really need to hear how much their father wanted a girl, how important they are, how much the father loves his daughters. And because so often we study science and we study firstborn females, so often we see them left in curvature. So that's a situation where it's interpreted. Maybe there's fetal trauma. Maybe the parent wants a specific gender. But either way, if there's a fetal trauma, unplanned pregnancy, or they want a specific gender, then you're going to impact that child, right? And that child's going to question gender. And when they question gender, they're going to wonder, if they were male, would they be loved differently? Would their dad be more present for them if they were a male? But when we look at things scientifically, we find that's not the case. Even if you were a male, it's likely that your father wouldn't have been present, It's
all, right,
likely that he
either,
would have
right.
been more a person that went to work and provided.
Mhm.
And your dad's a genuinely amazing, great man. And with some coaching,
Mhm.
we can really help all people,
Right.
right? And so, but we can understand the challenges that we all have because our spine doesn't reveal who we are as a rule.
Okay.
Our spine reveals who influenced us as a rule.
Okay. I think that's amazing to say it like that.
So when I actually see someone who shows up in their spine,
Right.
I'm like, wow, this is great.
Right.
Like when I see a woman who's in her feminine and she's able to be vulnerable
Mhm.
and she's able to express her overwhelm
Mhm.
and she's able to ask for help. And I pointed this out to a person I coached the other day. I said, well, where you're so comfortable, it's in masculine, and the work you need to do, it's in vulnerability, not masculinity.
Right. Right.
So it's not in handling load, it's in realizing when you're overloaded. And so that pattern rings in my brain, seeing that backward curve in all of you,
Right.
even your brothers,
Right.
because same is true. Right?
Yeah, let's talk about my brothers because that is fascinating to me. The two X-rays that we have of my two brothers, how how would you describe in terms of them showing up in their own spine in either one of them?
Well, the challenge of it is with your brothers, we see right curvature
Right.
in them, which is female influence pattern.
Right.
So your brothers are influenced by 5 women.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yes.
And by women that didn't get what they needed necessarily by their fathers,
Mhm.
right? And maybe the women didn't really look for mother approval as much
Mhm.
because out of all, well, I don't know about the third sister, but
Their brother.
your sisters, you're the only one that represents in right curvature.
Right.
Whereas your other sisters are left curvature. So it's easier for them to operate in masculine. And then when we see the evolution between your oldest sister,
Mhm.
because her pattern has some patterning and there's a good amount of left curvature, I believe in the seated pattern.
Mhm.
But then when we see your fourth
Mhm.
sister, she is the most left out of all of you.
Right.
Right? So in her reality, gender is an enormous issue in her reality.
Right.
And it's created confusion.
Right.
Because in her reality says if I was a male, I'd be loved differently by my father.
Or even maybe paid more attention to.
More attention, right? But to get more from your father, it's not hard. It's not hard at all.
No,
right?
We've talked
It's
about
not hard at all. It's hard when we sit back and expect a parent who doesn't have the emotional awareness to make these edits, but is not commonly the person with the lower emotional intelligence that make edits, right? So you can see firsthand how your relationship has changed with your father from neutrality. Like, oh, I'm just going to love my dad.
Right.
Like, I can see that he wasn't perfect. And he was just doing a program that he was taught. And so, but then what happened between you and him is what? You let go of your expectation of him. You decide to have a relationship with him because you understood how important that was to your health, right? And so the changes that have manifested because you had a profile, you worked on some of the issues that were playing out in your life. And as a result of that, you now have this relationship with your father that maybe you would have never had.
Right.
Right? It's just like when I was young, I'm still young, but when I was younger, my sister was upset at me because she's like, I'm upset because dad does everything for you, but does nothing for me, which is pretty typical. We hear that a lot.
Right, yes.
And and I said, well, the difference between you and I is I ask for what I need and you don't.
Right. Which a lot of women, that's what women do, right?
Well, that's what left curvature women do.
Right.
Left curvature women want you to know what they need.
Read your mind.
Without you telling them, because they may not even know.
It doesn't always work out. Well, that typically does not work out in the male-female relationship.
Yeah, it can be very challenged for sure. So, but when you're looking at these issues and you look at the spine, it gives us so much immediate clarity as to what eyes are you seeing your life through. Are they yours or are they someone else's? If you're in left curvature and you're a female, then what you're doing is you're operating in your masculine. And that belief system says that because you are not a male, this is why you don't have what you need. Right.
And so in that, when that's someone's story, what does that look like playing out in real life? And say they attract a partner.
Yeah, well, the backward and left curvature woman, as a rule, does not attract backward and left because that would be too demanding because they're both needing to control. The left curve is more controlling in nature. The backward curve is more denial, right? So, so that doesn't work. Two lefts don't work. So commonly, when we see a woman who's left in curvature, most likely that woman, when attracting a male to her life, will attract a male that's more mother influenced. Okay. And so then they come together with this belief that their partner is going to love them, heal them, validate them, encourage them, grow with them over their lifetime, right? But what we see with people is most people see their life through someone else's eyes. So when you marry someone, you're not really marrying that person. You're marrying who influenced that person.
Right.
And then as you start coaching and working with them, they start to come forward in their pattern, right? And now they're seeing their life through their own eyes that love them, value them, that encourage them, that approve of them. And then what you then see is how identity shifts and changes, because if we can take a behavior that we inherit and we inherit it and we learn it, and then we can take a new behavior and we can say, oh, I'm going to replace this behavior with this behavior, right? If I learn this behavior, I can learn this new behavior. Right. And so, but that's why so many relationships are challenged, right? Because they're challenged if they're opposite curvature, because there's a wound that is not healed. And then we're attracting someone, and then we go off into the fantasy that this person will heal our wounds. But they are not the person to heal those wounds. The person who has the story within them is the person to heal that wound, not someone outside of them, right? And so, anyway, this is deep subject because you can have two right curves, which are both going to want to be right. You can have two left curves, which are both going to want to control. So as a rule, you're going to attract opposite curve until you get into same-sex relationships. When you get into same-sex relationships, you may find people with the same curve.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a deep discussion.
Yeah. Well, I think there are so many things that just got brought up in that segment that we'll revisit some of those questions that I have in the next one. We'll be right back. Welcome back. That was an incredible segment. There were so many questions that came to my mind that we'll revisit on the bonus segment. So if you'd like to hear the bonus segment, please subscribe to the podcast. And let's just get into talking about when a patient comes in and you give them an adjustment, what happens when that tension's released.
Every patient that comes in, they come in with pain. And most people, as a rule, have no awareness that the pain they may be experiencing in their body is relative to the behavior that's within them.
Right.
And so they come in to me primarily for an adjustment. They're in pain. They are coming to me. They want an adjustment. They have a fantasy of that adjustment, that I'm just going to treat them and all their pain is going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come on in. I watch them walk into the room.
Mm-hmm.
I pick up whether or not they're in a short leg imbalance. I'm looking at their shoulders to see if their shoulders are dropping or aligned. I then calmly sit them on the table and I check shoulder drop.
Mm-hmm.
I want to palpate the spine and the surrounding areas to consider where the inflammation in the body is. And I want to ask them where their pain is, because so often they'll have pain on one side, but when palpating the body, the other side of the body is so much more severe.
Oh, interesting.
But they're not having pain relative to that severity. And that's because that program in behavior has been there so long in their life.
So when you're palpating, what are you doing?
I just use my hands to feel where the stress is. I can pick up where the muscle is in spasm, where the body is inflamed. But I'm also looking for imbalances, because my job is to give the very best chiropractic adjustment I can give, which I think I'm really good at adjusting. But also my job is to help encourage people to take a deeper look into why they're having the pain they're having and what strategies can be given to that person so that they can begin to see the dysfunction in their life that's causing their pain in their body from a different lens. Okay. And so they sit on my table, and so often there are days, like recently, I had 52 new patients in a day. I did an event and I have 52 new people come to me.
Right.
And in that event, I looked at these patterns that we're discussing, and I would sit them on the table. I would coach them and break down the behaviors that I could see. And I give them new awarenesses, and then I would adjust them. But your question is really, how can an adjustment impact us emotionally?
Right.
Well, when we have pain, that's relative so often to hurt that's denied. When we deny hurt, our body holds it. You come to me, and I'm going to not only express what the issue is that's underlying your pain pattern, but I'm going to give you a series of adjustments to balance your body, to balance the short leg, which takes seconds, to balance the shoulder drop, which takes seconds. And then I'm going to encourage, like if, say it's a woman and she's in backward curve and she's in left curve, well, what am I going to ask her? What's your purpose? I'm going to say, what's your purpose? What's she going to say? I don't know. So you can tell me, I don't know.
Right.
I'm going to ask her, when was the last time you told yourself you love yourself? She's going to say, never. Okay. And so then I'm going to start working on that realm, because to me, my greatest job is to give people awareness on the importance of love, validation, encouragement, approval. But it's so much more powerful when we lean on ourselves for those attributes, rather than we go looking for someone outside of ourselves to give us what we need to be doing for ourselves, within ourselves, right? And so, it's funny because I will, with the strongest women, I will say, okay, so you haven't told yourself you love yourself ever. So that's where we're going to start. what I want you to do is say what I say. So you say, I choose to love myself today. So they say it. Then I say, I choose to love the wonderful woman I was created to be. They say that. Usually the stronger women cry when you talk about that command.
Yeah.
So often you'll have ladies that never cry, but all of a sudden, when you're getting them into this love energy, they start breaking down and crying because that's what they've always needed, but they never heard it. And their program was, in order for me to get it, I have to be Superwoman. I have to do everything. I have to handle everything. I have to carry everything.
Yes.
I have to overpower and overdo. And if I'm tired, I have to power through it. And if I'm in pain, I got to push through it.
Right.
And I have no time for myself. And why would that be? Because they lack the purpose of self-love. Right? Because if they had a strong foundation of self-love, then they would be working on actions of love in their life. Like, what are my actions of love? What can I do for me before I move off into the world?
Right. And do it for everyone else.
Right. And do for other people. And so anyway, but my job, when you're in a walk-in business, and there are times I get so many walk-ins and so many times where I get lots of new patients. So I have five minutes to break down behavior, to coach them, to give them some tools to walk out with, to treat them. And then, of course, unlocking the body, you really, by doing the adjustments, you just shift wherever that hurt is held in the body. Right. But then in my business, I have people come back 90 minutes to 2 hours later. We check to see if they maintain balance. We check to see if they held their leg balance, their shoulder balance. I check to see if the areas I treated held or didn't hold. If it held, I go to other areas that so often we can then release secondarily. But what I see is how people dramatically improve in one day. Like in one day in their life, they could go from years of chronic pain, and in one day, 2-3 visits in one day, shift them, and all of a sudden, they're like, at the end of the day, oh, it's just a miracle.
Yeah. Well,
I feel so much better.
I just remembered something. So my daughter was having some emotional feelings. Something had happened in with a relationship that she had in school with a boy, and I remember having you come over, and she was, I think you had said, in like emotional breakdown in terms of and showing signs of being upset and emotionally distraught, and you adjusted her, and it's like the sun came out.
Yeah, because our body needs to be released. We can release so much through just awareness. The more intelligent we are emotionally, it really helps. Because I feel as if I've really grown a lot emotionally. So I've recognized things that work and things that don't work. I'm so kind to myself. I'm so loving to myself. I have reasonable expectations for myself. I don't see my value in my outcomes. I see that my life's about my intentional energy. I'm very focused in on giving every single person my very best intention. And my intention is not only to help them to learn to master love for themselves, but to help them to unlock the hurt in their body that's resulting in pain. And as we work through these issues with them, they get these dramatic results. And then I point it out to them because they'll be like, you're the greatest doctor. And I'm like, no, you're the greatest doctor. Because all I can do as a doctor is give a great adjustment and lead someone in a new direction. It's up to them to take that direction and move into that new energy.
Yeah,
right?
For them to be their own hero.
For them to be their own hero, or for them to be their own best doctor, right? Because there's a lot of pressure when you have to be the person to fix someone, right? But there's no pressure in being the person to empower someone, right? I don't have the power to fix you. I have the power to share information with you. Because you have high emotional intelligence, you crave feedback like your brain's a sponge, and you're like, oh, I want more of that, right? Because of your emotional intelligence. Whereas other people in high levels of denial, they're like, oh, doc, I'm not here for that. I'm just here for an adjustment.
Right.
I don't, oh, please don't open up that, because that's a lot of wound that I'm not prepared for. Just give me an adjustment. I'm like, okay. I can do that too.
But then that person is like asleep in their life, right?
Well, we're asleep in our life if we see our life through the eyes of someone else, and if we adopt other people's behavioral programs before us as if they're our own, then that means we are asleep in our own life, and what's running our life is inherited generational behavioral programs that have been passed from one generation to the next. The choice is simple. Are we going to stay asleep, or are we going to wake up? When we wake up, where's the power in waking up? It's in doing things differently, right?
Right.
That's the power. It's not in, oh, I do it the same, that everyone in my family has done it. No, the power is when we're asked that question, tell me about the behaviors you have in you today that no one in your family has in them. When we hear that question, so many people that are asleep, they can't answer it. But people who are awake, they can go on and on and on and on. Like you could ask me that question. Oh, well, I'm a clear communicator. I don't internalize and I don't personalize, which really makes it powerful, because then when someone who's wounded projects their wound, because I don't personalize and because I see them as wounded. So that's the power. Oh, wow, you're wounded. So in your wound, you're transferring the story. I have a choice to accept it or deny it, right? And I don't come from this belief in me that says that when people say things to me, or hurtful or hateful things to me, that that's all about me, right? I know that there's a story before that projection. And so I've learned, oh, I'm going to not respond emotionally here. Right? That's how I've grown so much, because there have been times where, oh, I wanted to hold people accountable for what they did. Let me hold you accountable.
Yes. Right.
But they didn't even have the emotional awareness for that accountability, right? So now it's like, how much energy do I want to spend here? How open is this person to hearing this information? How open are they to take information and make changes in their life? They're not open. Why am I going to say anything? Why am I going to expend energy? Because I'm going to put out all this energy to someone who's just going to take all my energy. And, I see it as a chiropractor. I get energy vampires coming in. They're energy vampires. Oh, they want to suck every drop of energy out of me, right? Oh, I'm still having a problem. Oh, I feel a little bit better, but now I have this problem. And I say, well, all I can do is give you my best. That's what I'm dedicated to doing. And are you needing me to give you more than my best? Because I don't know how to do that.
What does someone say when you say that?
Oh, they don't know what to say to that. They're like, no, your best is okay. And then I always end with, healing takes time, right? So you're jumping into a chiropractor's office who looks at human behavior as the first step, right? And
versus
so
the physical.
Oh, you got a physical pain. Well, why do you have pain? Oh, I'm so bad at my lower back. My right side of my lower back is so severe. I'm in so much pain. I'm in agony. I just want to die. Okay, so you have right side lower back. So are you being hurt in a relationship? Do you take the hurt you feel internally? If you take hurt you feel internally, you have pain. If that pain is you were hurt by a female, then that could be why you have right-sided pain, right? But it could be deeper than that too. Because like we look at lower back pain and we look at sexual function. So say I'm a person who enjoy sex, and then I attract someone who's wounded sexually, right?
Right.
Well, then if I'm in a wounded behavior, then when I approach that person and they deny me, now it triggers in me anger. I'm angry because you denied me, right?
Right.
And so you see a lot of pain in those dynamics. So say someone doesn't want sex, but their partner wants sex. Oh, well, my back's so severe, we can't have sex.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's just so much as we jump into this realm. It's so exciting.
Yes,
because we're just touching like this little smidge of information about this science and what it's all about. Yeah. And it gives us clarity as to the spine itself. It's a roadmap. It's a blueprint, and it shares so much information. And unfortunately, for many doctors on the planet, they have segmentalized the spine.
Right.
So they look at small segments. What my dad started 50, 60 years ago was taking full spine x-rays. So the image size was 14 inches wide by 36 inches in length, which would capture the cranium to the pelvis. And that was done just for spinal measurement to document the effectiveness of chiropractic.
Right.
But what came from that is awareness at a level that, I'm just so excited about, because it's like every day of my life, I get to go to work, I get to learn something new, and I get to just stay in that great feeling of growth.
Right.
That I feel as if there's some things I know, but there's so much more to know, and there's such a willingness within me to grow and to get data and feedback from others and bring that into my computer bank and start looking at this science from a different set of eyes.
Right. Well, that was amazing. We'll be right back.
This episode of the Adjusting Your Life podcast is brought to you by Ward Chiropractic. For over 30 years, Dr. Steve Ward has been helping people get to the root cause of their pain. He's a second-generation chiropractor who looks at the whole spine, not just the sore spot. With standing and seated full spine x-rays, Dr. Steve finds what most doctors miss. And his wall adjustment technique? It can bring fast relief. Back pain, sports injuries. Check out chiroman.com for hours, location, and to contact the clinic. Or stop by Ward Chiropractic Family Center today. Mention this ad, and you'll get a free recheck 2 hours after your first adjustment. That's Chiroman, CHIROMAN.com.
Welcome back. That was a powerful segment. I really enjoyed that. I'm so excited for this podcast. And
me too.
And just how many people are going to hear things and be able to make changes in their life. So we just got done talking about the adjustment, the release that happens with the adjustments when patients come in. And so let's talk about how you measure progress.
There's many different ways to measure progress. On a pain pattern, it's whether or not the pain comes back or doesn't. In our science, however, my dad, 50, 60 years ago would take all these full spine x-rays, and he started just x-raying his patients standing from the front and side. And then later he added seated front and side full spine x-rays. And then he would take x-rays on all of his patients, and then he would treat them for a period of time. And then he'd take a new set of x-rays, and then he could see, oh, wow, the spine didn't change, or the spine dramatically changed. And so a lot of that was just through the chiropractic adjustment, and that he would find objective evidence that supported great change where he started and where the patient was. And then, so that's really the science of the work, is taking those x-rays, reading the human behavior pattern, the generational behavior pattern, making the audio for the person. The patient then listens to the audio, starts making edits in their behavior, starts rewriting behavioral code that is different from the generations prior to them and how they lived. And so this was really what the science was founded on, was objective evidence to support whether or not his chiropractic was effective or not. But in my work, so often I'm not taking x-rays.
Right.
And I've looked at x-rays for so long, I'm really good at reading behavior in people, even without x-ray analysis. It's always deeper when you can incorporate the x-ray analysis. However, it's not practical because a lot of people, one, don't want to be x-rayed. Two, they don't have the finances to pay for x-rays. And are we going to help that patient with some behavioral awareness? Or are we just going to give an adjustment? And in my business, I do it all.
Yeah.
And unless the person has very little openness to awareness, then I will not waste any energy on that person. So I'll drop a nugget, little golden nugget, see how they deal with that. And but I'm always looking at, did the pain go away or is it the same? Because I'm giving them the insight as to why they're in pain. So if they can correct that issue, then their pain should diminish, right? It's just like I had a gal come in and she had so much right arm pain. And she said, if you don't help me, I just don't even know what I'm going to do. I don't even know if I want to live. I'm in so much chronic pain. And in discussing from her right shoulder pain, I came into the wound with her mother, who actually abandoned her when she was a little girl. And then when her pain started to become so severe, her mother, who had abandoned her, came back in her life as a sick mother, looking for her daughter to step up and help her in her healing journey, right? And so the daughter jumps out to help her mother, but it's not congruent, right? It would be congruent if your mother stepped up for you and was there for you and loved you and gave her best to you and helped you to, have a strong identity and helped you to see how much value you have and all that stuff, right? But when we look at patients, I see great change almost immediately. And then when I see people come back, they have improved their short leg. They're not in as much balance. They're not having the same chronicity of pain. Because once you unlock what the behavioral wound is, and you give someone clarity, and if they have any emotional quotient at all, once they're given that awareness, that then just completely transforms their current issue. And so there's just lots of ways to assess improvement. And but with primarily our science has relied heavily on the systems analysis work over the years. I'm not relying as heavily on it today. Thank goodness I've been able to look at a lot of x-rays and get insights into how to read someone's behavior. Now, I can't specifically say something like, oh, wow, you have this alcoholic father that when he would drink, he would become verbally abusive. And now when you get hurt, you become the verbal abuser, right? So you can see certain parts of it, but you may not know it's an alcoholic father because that's a specific measurement that gives us insight as to what that behavioral program is and whether or not that's a generational behavior program, because most addiction programs are multi-generational. And when we identify addiction, we look at it and say, what are you using to withdraw from what you're feeling? What helps you to numb your hurt that you're feeling inside? Because if we deny our hurt, we will absolutely have physical pain. The hurt we deny becomes the pain we feel in our body. So the minute that I get hurt, I choose to deny it. Now here comes pain. Most people would not relate it to the hurtful experience.
Well, we talk about me in terms of, there's a couple things. One is what I was doing, which was to work, which that's an interesting addiction.
Yeah, it wasn't only to work, it was to attain. And it was to attain a lot of money because you were right in curvature, super high expectation,
Mm-hmm.
and you were backward in curvature,
Right.
which gets into your father who worked,
Mm-hmm.
right? His father who wasn't present for him. And so that's that mechanism.
Right. And
Okay.
I think when someone, so in my life, I think that there maybe hasn't been as much compassion for maybe things I would have been going through from friends or family, because it wasn't looked at like it was, well, you're working, right? But that was my vice. Like I could work happy, sad, mad, glad. It was there for me. My desk was always there for me, and it was how I functioned through a lot of challenges in my life. And
It was protective.
right. And so people around me, I think, because I was able to work, they maybe didn't see that I was hurting, and I was hurting. So I wasn't drinking, or
Right.
I wasn't
But
drinking,
keep in
for
mind,
example.
everyone's hurting.
Right.
And most people haven't learned how to express hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And most people personalize things that happen to them,
Mm-hmm.
when in fact, there's nothing about what happens to someone that's personal.
Right. Right.
A person who's wounded and transfers wound comes from a wound prior to you. If they transfer that wound to you, it's really not about you.
Mm-hmm.
In your emotional quotient, as you learn to not bite on every projection,
Mm-hmm.
you really get into our true power. It's so easy to become reactive. But in people who have higher emotional intelligence, their journey is to respond, not to react,
Mm-hmm.
to allow emotions to subside before you make decisions. That it's not the best time if you're in high emotion to communicate.
Right. To make that outgoing call, that's something I've actually worked on. Whereas like in previous years with work, I would have something happen on a Friday, and I would have to dial for dollars, what I would say, and get someone on the phone that could, I could hold accountable on a Friday at 5 o'clock.
Right.
And I would do it until I reached a person. And now fast forward, but it was, I would feel this cortisol rush, and, like something had been wronged in a situation. And in my situation, because of what I do for work, it was typically might have been like a loan approval that came over that, we had provided some upfront documentation that would have impacted the loan decision. And that documentation was included in the original file, and the underwriter didn't see it or overlooked it based on what I received on a Friday at 3 o'clock or whatnot. So now in my life, I don't have to make that I don't have that cortisol release. And it's interesting because part of that cortisol release, I think for me, was that I take such pride in what I do and in how I structure things and how I organize them. And I think previously when I'd have it, it was more of like a offense. Like, I can't believe they didn't take the time to look at what I gave them, and how could they? And, but it would leave me exhausted having that reaction. Right. And then trying to get someone on the phone, and then probably you use a high tone of voice, right, which puts the person that I get on the phone in a defense mode. Right. So now, because of the work I've been doing, I can see something was missed, and I don't have the cortisol release, and I can actually just wait till Monday and handle it then. And that has been life changing, because it doesn't end my week on this exhaustive, where I reacted. And so I think that we can maybe expand on that a little bit, because I think that there's a lot of, our audience that probably can relate to, and male or female, having that initial reaction to something in whatever job that they're doing.
Right.
And wanting to get someone on the phone and pay for it, essentially.
Right. Well, that's the world we live in. And where a lot of people are comfortable in reacting, and they haven't mastered regulation. So when they react, they don't lock down their tongue. But as we look at specifically you,
Mm-hmm.
your initial set of x-rays, you were severe right curvature on a backward curvature, which was indicative of your need for mother approval. But your mom actually did certain things that irritate you, and that would trigger you to feel inadequate, and then you would react emotionally, right? And so, but that right curvature in you is so high standard. It's like such a perfectionism model. So that really goes to the root of what you do within your career, that you take it seriously and that you give your best and that you know it inside and out, and you work hard to bring to the client's awareness who you are as a person, and who you are as a person is always the person who's giving your very best to whatever challenge is before you.
Like the word that comes to my mind is like excellence, I think, is the one that I've tried to pursue.
Yeah.
But it's at the pursuit of excellence. No, it's like coming at cost, like just because I think in that pursuit, I probably like toppled on people.
Yeah, well,
That
honey,
weren't as that didn't have like as high a standard as I had.
yeah. Well, it's easy to do, but again, that's a programming behavior that's generational. And but the point that's important to make in this segment is because we're talking about how someone can change with the work that's being done. Well, your spine dramatically changed from your first set of x-rays to your second. So you went from this heavy right curve, emotional reactor, explosive, unreasonable expectation, nothing's good enough. No matter what you attained, it wasn't enough. To now you went into this mildly left curve. So that pattern of behavior has completely transformed in you. And with very little treatment. And I've coached you a good amount, but primarily your transformation has occurred through the behavior awareness, not through the physical adjustment. Okay. And you've come so far. And so, but in your case, we can see where you started in the female dominant pattern. And then we can see how you, oh, wow, it's not okay for me to react emotionally. Right? That when I react emotionally and take that out on someone, that's not healthy.
And even being able to I think obviously there was a level of professionality in my reaction because it's part of my career, but it still is not necessary. So you can react emotionally, keep it professional to a degree, but in my case, it would have been maybe a high tone, or it could have been a condescending tone. That's something I've been working on. I didn't realize that someone could, it wasn't ever my intention to be condescending, but I certainly have heard that said. So it's, when you hear it, you want to be like, okay, is my tone of voice condescending? And also understand that the lower tone voice when communicating to someone, something that maybe you'd like them to do differently,
works better.
And that's something just as a contributing member to society and in the workplace that I'm working on, in working with other people, because it's not my intention to have anyone feel bad about.
But again, conversely, if someone feels bad, it may not have anything to do with you either.
Sure.
So just be mindful that people come from wound. And there's so many successful people that you work with, but at the root of their success is wound. Right? So they think, oh, I have all this money, I shouldn't have to go to through the protocol that everyone has to go through. But they're asking for a loan, right?
Right.
They're asking for a loan, even though they have a ton of money, but now they're asking for a loan. But in their mind, they see that as nonsense because they have all this money. But the reality of it is you want money. So if you want money, this is the protocol you must go through in order to get the money. Okay. So what you need to understand about how much you've transformed, because I've seen it so dramatically from your adjustment initially was so difficult. I would do a wall adjustment on you and I would get nothing to move. And in fact, I think I almost put a hole in your wall from trying to adjust you so hard, right? And now you never have an imbalance in your legs. Your adjustments are minimal at best, just minimal.
Mhm.
You're not really ever in pain. And all of this goes to your emotional intelligence
Right.
and how you've grown emotionally
Mhm.
and how this work has helped you to do so. So in the science, there's many different ways, but the best way is when the patient comes in and tells you, oh, well, I've had 10 years of this problem
Right.
and now I don't have that problem at all. And you're just this amazing healer. And it's like, no, you just listened
Yes.
and you gained awareness and you made an edit and you stopped looking for approval from that person who couldn't give it to you, and you started giving yourself the approval you needed. And the minute you did that, you transformed your issue. And because when we stay out of generational wound and we let that go and we start having healthy, reasonable expectations, we can have a lot more joy in our life.
Right. Well, yes, we're going to shout out our producer, Jamie. Thank you. We're thankful for you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Adjusting Your Life podcast. For our show notes, please visit the adjustingyourlifepodcast.com website, and we'll see you next time.
This is a broadcast of the Adjusting Your Life podcast, produced by Adjusted Life Media in 2025. All information contained in this episode and all other content provided on this channel is for informational and entertainment purposes only. This content is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you or someone you know is experiencing a medical emergency, please contact your local emergency services. Dr. Stephen M. Ward, D.C., is a board-certified doctor of chiropractic medicine, licensed in the state of California, County of Los Angeles. The Adjusting Your Life podcast is written and produced by executive producer Jamie Knapp and co-produced by Kennedi Hall and Dr. Stephen Ward as Dr. Steve. For more information or to connect with us, visit adjustingyourlifepodcast.com.